I found this post on Quora, and since I found it very useful, I decided to post it here. The link to the original post is at the bottom. Typically, evidence suggests the dumpee warmly faces more pain, and they certainly do suffer the most intensity of emotions. That being said, the dumper rarely escapes pain-free. I'll explain the situation from both sides, hopefully to help people going through it. Approximately 9/10 relationships will fail, and that is okay. This is the dynamic for the majority of breakups. With significantly abusive relationships, it can be more complex. The dumper normally feels extremely sad about ending the relationship, but similarly, as if they have no other choice. This is the typical, "I'm no longer in love with you" breakup. The dumper has detached and the dumpee is shell-shocked. The dumper has prepared, is ready and excited for their future being single, while the dumpee feels like they've been hit by a freight train. To understand why, you need to understand the dynamics of control and rejection. Before the breakup, the dumper isn't happy for some reason they usually do not know themselves. Most dumpers do not actually break up with a dumpee for reasons relating to the actual relationship, but internal, for example, existential, fear of commitment, or external, for example, new jobs, friends being single or married, long-distance pressures. It's often not the dumpee's fault. The dumper is unhappy, and they rarely effectively communicate how they feel or their needs from their partner. Compatibility is a myth. Whatever relationship you build, you will need to accept some flaws. Mature individuals understand what they can accept and what they can't, and establish boundaries for their partners. It's very rare for a long-term relationship to end because of compatibility issues, because you have coped together sufficiently fine for a significant period. In shorter-term relationships, significant differences in opinion prevent them from developing further. Nobody wants to consider themselves a bad person. We are always the hero in our own story, i.e., protagonist syndrome. We know that dumping someone will be hurtful, hence the name. Breaking up doesn't necessarily need to be so traumatic. Dumpers have a level of control which they focus to minimize the pain on themselves. They are confused and consumed by fear. What if this is the wrong choice? They normally hide their feelings and wait until they are certain and reach the best possible moment for them. Many dumpers wait until just after receiving birthday gifts from their partner. I once watched someone get dumped the night of a wedding, just after being used as a bridesmaid's +1. This may appear selfish, and essentially it is. However, from the dumper's perspective, they are in pain, and they project the blame for this onto the dumpee. Me to feel like this. You forced me to do this. The dumper often gets angry at the dumpee during the breakup. They project the blame away from themselves because they can't face hurting someone. Any reaction by the dumpee is used as justification for the dumper actions. Dumpers need the situation to deteriorate to justify their action. A confirmation bias. Look at how they cried. I need someone stronger. They got angry. They are unstable. They didn't react. They never cared about me. Any reaction confirms the dumper's decision. This total lack of control is confusing for the dumpee. They can't fix anything. It's an internal struggle for the dumper. The build-up for a significant period within the relationship dumper is in pain. They often project their insecurities onto their partner. For example, is they feel self-conscious about being overweight. You need to go to the gym more, or unfulfilled in their job. You're never going to be successful. This criticism can be confusing for their partner because it often doesn't reflect the realities of the situation and sometimes is completely hypocritical. This criticism leads to contempt. The dumper actively dislikes spending time with their partner, eye-rolling when they speak or request things. This is because they feel that they've asked their partner to improve the criticism and they feel they have ignored it. The dumper may test the dumpee and overstep boundaries, cheat, party, actively abuse them. If the dumpee forgives the dumper, they lose more and more respect. If the dumpee challenges the dumper, they remember this as a slight, as justification for a breakup. The dumper doesn't understand why they feel contempt for their partner, that they previously loved so much, thus they start to pull away from them to see if some space will help. The dumper reduces emotional support and possibly sexual contact for the dumpee. The dumpee will feel this and may ask the dumper what is wrong. The dumper, scared of consequences, may lie, "I'm fine, I just need some time to myself," etc. The dumpee might get emotional and force the situation. The dumper will be extremely dismissive to shut the conversation, or as they see it, the confrontation down. This challenge is similarly remembered as a conflict for justification when the breakup comes. The dumpee trusts their partner and expects them to honestly explain how they feel. They respect their partner when they deflect their concerns and explain them as their partner having a hard time. The dumpee believes they are handling any conflict maturely. Gaslighting can occur because of an unequal power dynamic. The dumpee can compromise when their partner oversteps boundaries and also accept the blame. The dumpee can sometimes try and help their partner feel better, but this comes across as needy and too full-on. Similarly, if the dumpee pulls back and let their partner have space, the dumper feels unappreciated or ignored. Unless the dumper communicates effectively, the dumpee can do nothing to change the outcome. Every action is a confirmation bias for the dumper. The dumpee is very happy and lives in a fantasy, believing they can trust their partner. They remain loyal as the dumper disconnects. The dumper usually doesn't know what is wrong. They play their cards close to their chest, so not to spook the dumpee. They logically do not want to break up unless they are certain. Because they are unhappy, they start to fantasy either watching their friends or on their past life when they were happier. This is sometimes called the grass is always greener syndrome. In the mundanity of life, we tend to believe our friends are having more fun, or that our younger self was much more exciting than our current self. Social media makes the fear of missing out a significant pressure on relationships. Why are we not as loved up as our friends on Instagram? Why am I not traveling and partying like my single friends? We don't consider that our own choices prevent us from these activities and the necessary sacrifices these lifestyles may need. Remember, it's a fantasy. They might find someone new and attractive. This can build into an affair. However, this is a fantasy also. It's fueled from excitement of the situation and as a distraction to their negative feelings. Affairs rarely last the transition into long-term relationships. The dumper now is feeling unhappy. Their partner is not adapting rapidly enough to their constant criticism. They may have lost respect in them. They have pulled away, and that they are still unhappy, and they are fantasying about life away from their partner. They are scared to talking to their partner, so they seek help from their friends and family. They moan, emphasizing the negative elements of the relationship because they don't want their feelings of unhappiness to not be seen as justified. This positively reinforces their feelings. It can actively vilify their partner, portraying them as a monster. Their friends and family support them and do better. They offer quick fixes to make their loved one feel happier. Finish with them and have fun with us. This adds a pressure onto the dumper, because now they have voiced their concern and their friends and family will keep trying to push this outcome to positively reinforce them. Friends and family members can also push their own agenda and manipulate the situation in their favor. I think of these like the flying monkeys in The Wizard of Oz. I once learnt German at school. Older than Spanish, my aunt is Spanish, and I went to Spain every year on holiday because my friends said they would help me with homework. They never once did help me. It's funny how susceptible we are to the influence of others. The dumper now is unhappy. Nothing is improving. They are fantasizing about the future, and their support structure is promoting the breakup. Usually the situation is that they haven't involved the dumpee in any of this. Ironically, communicating often could help with these issues, but the dumper has let the situation spiral and the feeling is now much worse. The dumper has usually been in pain for weeks, if not months, in silent conflict with themselves about what to do. The dumpee isn't making them feel better, but they aren't communicating their needs. Finally, they decide they will break up the relationship. Normally, they commit to it and decide to fade out over a period of a few weeks in an attempt to lessen the blow. I read a paper recently that suggested it takes 7 attempts to finally end the relationship on average. The breakup eventually, the dumper dumps the dumpee. The dumpee is shocked and blindsided. They feel betrayed, instant pain like being hit with a sledgehammer. The dumper is not in pain. They are intensely relieved that they have been able to do what they felt needed to be done. They might feel proud and courageous. Their family and friends congratulate them and are ready to support. The dumpee feels an enormous level of rejection. Typically, the rejection affects an individual into separate ways, so you might observe differences, but the overall effect is the same. 1. A higher ego individual will be confused. They may feel better than the dumper and can't understand why they would do this. This completely shatters their perception of themselves. 2. A lower ego individual may feel worthless and spiral into depression. Regardless of the strength of the dumpee's ego, everyone will be hurt by this rejection. However, someone who is highly successful will particularly struggle with this rejection. Imagine being top of your game, idolized professionally and socially, the center of attention in any room, and your partner says literally, "I can do better." Sometimes the dumpee will hit rock bottom and require much rebuilding and grow from this experience into a much better person. This should be the goal of any dumpee: personal growth. Use this pain as a motivator. The dumper doesn't experience this, which although traumatic is a disadvantage. Because the dumpee is surprised by the decision, they do the logical thing and try and communicate with their dumper to understand what happened and why the situation is unrecoverable. They provide solutions and try to fix the problem. Any reason provided by the dumper will not be sufficient enough for dumpee, and no solution will work for the dumper. This is because both sides are acting from emotional positions and not logical ones. The dumpee will try and remind the dumper of all the positives of their relationship and the successes they have made. For the dumper, this is too late. They have spent months thinking about these. They feel frustrated and uncomfortable with the dumpee wanting answers to questions the dumper has answered internally months ago. It doesn't change anything. Why do we need to go over this all again? The dumper honestly believes they have been open about how unhappy they have felt and have waited months for the dumpee to change. Often this isn't the case. Usually the dumper hides their feelings to protect themselves because they want to be 100% certain before making a life-altering choice. This is understandably the best strategy for them, putting themselves in the best position, climbing into a lifeboat before blowing the ship up. They need to escape the pain. They can't bring themselves to admit they behave this way because it portrays them negatively. They need to feel the hero, justified. They can't empathize with the dumpee because they have struggled with this feeling for so long, whilst the dumpee has trusted the dumper and expected them to share their feelings and be honest with them. In terms of control, the dumper has 100% of the control. They are simply walking away. This is a shock to the dumpee, who still considers this a 50-50 relationship. They are still invested and want an opportunity to work on it. They attempt to compromise, but the position is beyond that now. In this unequal dynamic, the dumper pushes all blame onto the dumpee. The dumpee commits to work on their flaws, and the dumper has no responsibility. They might list all the activities that the dumpee has done to push them to this conclusion. This is all your fault. A list of minor conflicts spanning years may be presented to the dumpee as justification. These typically aren't the actual reason for the breakup, but an example of a conflict and excuse for the dumper to use to justify their decision. The dumper thinks of any motivation for the breakup just to escape how they feel, clutching at straws to justify leaving. This is why closure doesn't really exist. The dumper doesn't fully know why they are making this decision, and no reason is ever good enough for the dumpee. The dumpee will usually accept each listed reason as flaws and mistakes, but try and convince the dumper that they will change. Nothing is going to change the dumper's mind in the moment. They have made the choice and want to experience life without the dumpee. Any attempt to manipulate the situation will be seen by the dumper as the dumpee trying to keep them trapped where they don't want to be. The dumper wants to escape, and the dumpee is clinging to them for dear life. Every period of separation feels like instant relief from the dumpee. The dumper needs this escape and the relief more and more. Give me space. Aftermath: the dumper often wants to keep the positives that they see of the relationship whilst removing the negative elements. Remember, they just want to escape the pain. This is why they might suggest being friends. The dumper's ego believes they can keep everything that they want and nothing that they don't. An ideal fantasy situation for the dumper: total control, maximum benefit at no cost, completely parasitic relationship. This is the power dynamic at play. Some people falsely diagnose their exes as narcissists, however they are usually simply acting selfishly. It's unfortunate, but normal to exploit the dynamic for their maximum benefit. Dumpees unwillfully feed the dumper's ego, making this dynamic worse. If the dumpee begs, the dumper feels even more powerful and knows they can return to the relationship. The dumpee often acts super nice in an attempt to coerce the dumper back. The dumpee's friends and family that suggest sending gifts or letters to their ex to convince them to return. Insert romantic comedy click here. This will make the dumper feel more powerful and guilty for hurting their ex. The dumper doesn't want to feel like a bad person. They are the hero in their eyes. They will turn to their friends and family to mock the dumpee's behavior. Positive reinforcement. They will see their ex as pathetic and very unattractive. Confirmation bias. They might feel guilt and feel like a bad person, so their friends and family will step in to vilify the dumpee as manipulative, making the dumper feel justified and bolster their support. The dumper now has ended the relationship, but can return at any point and has support from everyone. This is an ideal situation for them. They have everything that they want. They might even be getting gifts from their ex, but at no cost. Their action and choices have had no negative consequences. The dumper feels happy. The flying monkeys warn the dumper of being too close and spin their interactions with the dumpee face to face or via social media to encourage the dumper to move on and be happy. Notice the quick fix promises. They may also try and push the dumpee away themselves. The situation can spiral as the dumper isn't as available to the dumpee anymore and nothing is returned. In this new relationship dynamic, the dumpee has 100% of the cost and 0% of the benefits. The dumper thinks it's perfect and can't empathize with the dumpee's feelings. Guilt and the fear of manipulation force them to keep a distance. The dumpee experiences this as their ex becoming cold, i.e., non-invested in their interactions. The dumpee is hurting, and this lack of affection causes them to push more and more. Eventually, the dumpee loses all self-respect, and this usually results in the dumper cutting the dumpee fully off, completely disconnected. This is usually the rock bottom moment for the dumpee. They have completely lost someone they love. In time, they will process this pain and reflect. Usually they accept that the dumper didn't treat them as they should. They feel anger, and healthy individuals accept the breakup as the best action and move on. Some individuals cling to this anger, never internally forgiving their ex, resenting them forever. This negativity may impact future relationships. Breakups are very traumatic for the dumpee, and we can use this to change and grow or stagnate in our resentment. Only when fully separated does the dumper fully face the consequences of their actions, although they may not notice it for an extended period until the relief fades. The dumper is experiencing the world that they fantasied about, but it never matches their expectations. Maybe their new partner isn't as exciting as they expected, or they can't go on around the world trips because of work commitments. Our dreams rarely lives up to expectations. The dumper can double down in denial. This should be more fun, let's go party. But eventually this will become stale. It's rare that the dumper has fixed the original stresses that caused them to be unhappy. They are left confused. They left the relationship because it wasn't making them happy, but now they are still unhappy without the relationship. They have 0% cost, 0% benefit, as there's no relationship. The flying monkeys get bored without drama and cease their attention and support. No one is as available as before. If single, they will eventually want to date, but it's a shock when they aren't seen as attractive by others as they expected. They also find most people fairly boring. Conversation is very dry and it feels like too much effort. Dates might use them for hookups or ghost them after weeks or months. They feel devalued. If they enter a new relationship because the dumper doesn't consider any of the mistakes they personally made, similar patterns develop. The dumper may become critical of this new partner in a similar manner. They trap themselves in a cycle, unable to accept responsibility. Comparisons are made with a fantasy version of the dumpee and their new partner. Often the dumpee is better at some metric, and this causes doubt in the dumper's mind. Why am I not with someone who is better at this? The dumper usually isn't self-aware enough to appreciate everyone has flaws. They have told themselves they deserve better. Their friends and family told them you will find better, but no one is better by every single metric. The fading affect bias is a concept that over time our negative memories fade quicker than our positive memories. Relationship coaches misinterpret this as over time the dumper forgets the negative memories. What happens in reality is that the intensity of both memories is reduced, with the negative memories' intensity reducing to a greater extent. However, studies show within breakups the fading affect bias doesn't have a significant impact. People hold on to the grudges. What I suspect happens is that the minor positives of the relationship are ignored. While in the relationship, however, outside the relationship, these can be much more apparent. The grass does appear greener on the other side. This is why I suspect many couples get back together, later break up, and then get back together. We keep fantasizing about the other side, and if we continually return, the risk of breaking up is massively reduced. Eventually we appreciate what our ex provided for us. They still feel in control, so may stalk their ex on social media, unblock them, send them a friend request, birthday text, etc. If they find their ex in a new relationship, they start to panic as they realize they have no control, and all the emotion hits them at once. This can cause a depression in them. If their dumpee chases again, they feel validated, still feeling superior. If the dumpee is aggressive or confrontational, they might feel slightly rejected, but they can twist this into feeling superior because their ex hasn't moved on yet. When the dumpee is civil and acts normally, this flips the dynamic completely. The dumper becomes more inquisitive. Overall impact and examples over time. The dumper feels a small level of pain continuously. They are responsible for their actions and the position they are in. The dumpee usually processes the pain and recovers. If the dumper feels in control, they feel comfortable with this pain and can return at any moment. When the pain is too much, they will simply approach the dumpee. They always feel in control. They have an easy escape if needed. The dumpee doesn't feel this. They accept that they never had any control and have learnt to accept things as they are, thus reducing their pain. Whilst true, the dumpee faces the most intense pain in a breakup. The dumper's journey is often overlooked. The dumper is in pain before the breakup and feels their only solution to stop this pain is to break up. Often this is projection, and once the relief fades and their fantasy becomes boring, they are left with their pain. Without someone to blame, they eventually realize the consequences of their decision. They are normally left isolated, still in the pain they originally felt. They have lost everything that they once had, but the pain remains. Every breakup I've been through, and every breakup I have seen my friends or family go through, has followed this dynamic. You can't reason with anyone and explain what will happen before they experience it. The dumper projects their pain onto the dumpee and sees no other option. Because of the positive reinforcement from friends and family explaining the future dynamic will be seen as manipulative. My best friend recently broke up with her ex. I sat with her and discussed how she felt and what she aimed to achieve. I listened and remained objective. She admitted not being over to other exes from 10 years and 7 years ago respectively. She knew she would feel the same about this partner. Despite knowing what would happen, she knew she needed something to change. She broke up with him, and they are remaining friends. He has been spiraling for 6 months plus. He's a doctor. On some level I want to tell him to walk away, so she can feel the consequences, and he can recover. It can't be good for his patients either. It's too manipulative for me to tell him also become a flying monkey, but I've told her she isn't treating him fairly. She also asked me to invite her ex from 7 years ago, a mutual friend, to my birthday party. However, she wasn't keen when I said I would invite his new girlfriend. Also, she moved back home for a few months and then into a flat share with some professionals in their early 20s. She is 30. Reliving a fantasy youth she felt she was missing in her relationship. Until she learns to deal with her internal issues, they are going to keep resurfacing in future relationships. My school friend is a clinical psychologist who has ended every relationship after 2 years. She's on to her 6th, and that will come to a close soon. She explained this dynamic to me after my most recent breakup. After her last two breakups, she's been in therapy and on antidepressants. Being the dumper hasn't shielded her from the pain. Knowing what will happen hasn't shielded her from the pain. Despite knowing she needs to solve her own issues, she rushes into the next relationship to mask the pain. My brother dumped his girlfriend of 3 years, and she moved in with a new boyfriend within 6 months. He lives in London and had a successful hookup life for a few years. Now his friends are all married or in long-term relationships. He's got limited savings and is losing his hair. He can't afford to live on his own, but can't face moving away from a major city. He regrets his decision a lot, but knows he can't take it back. If you want to understand a typical breakup dynamic, watch the film Forgetting Sarah Marshall. On the face of it, it's a silly romantic comedy, but its absurdity is metaphor of a normal breakup dynamic. Peter has annoying bad habits. Sarah can't communicate what she expects from him. She's in pain. She seeks therapy that doesn't actually involve Peter. You only find out later in the film. She can't drown with him anymore and ends it. Peter is completely shocked by this. Sarah is a celebrity, so she's omnipresent, while Peter is grieving, a great metaphor of the emotions the Dumpee feels. Her ego is extremely strong. It transpires that Sarah had an affair with Aldous Snow, a cooler musician to Peter, an upgrade, and is now in a relationship with him. Aldous and Sarah get validation everywhere they go. Aldous sings about having sex with Sarah, while Peter is forced to watch. He spirals witnessing this. Peter develops a new relationship with Rachel. He starts to remember the negative times with Sarah, mostly regarding her ego and control. Sarah and Peter both lose their jobs. Sarah loses her identity, whilst Peter finds it liberating. The fantasy with Aldous starts to fall apart, and Sarah is reminded of the positives Peter provided, ironically a different perspective on Peter's negative memories. She expected Aldous to be an improvement on Peter by every metric. The breakup didn't solve her internal pain. Her identity has been smashed and her fantasy life isn't going as planned. It was her choice, her decision, and she thinks she can take it back. Peter, however, is now happier with Rachel, so he rejects Sarah. However, he still is angry for her hurting him. He is projecting his pain and blame while dumping her back. Peter tells Rachel. She gets angry, and they break up. Peter, inspired by Rachel, achieves his goals, and Rachel, after a significant time period, comes back to him. Sarah is in a new television show, similar to her last, reliving her patterns of the past. In summary, the Dumpee gets a short burst of intense pain, and can use this as motivation to grow. Comparisons are not an issue, as the next relationship hasn't already broken your heart. The dumper is unhappy at first, pushes all blame for this unhappiness onto the Dumpee, feels brief relief, and then is confused when they are still unhappy. They rarely grow and repeat the same mistakes. Every future relationship is compared with the past ones.